Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Catrick, and I am excited to be back again with the conversation around We Are Still In, Climate Change, Sustainability, and Museums, as well as to be given the opportunity to reflect a little bit on how this presentation, which we did at the conference this last year, would have been different had we known that we were going into everything will be closed down and the COVID-19 pandemic. So joining me for the presentation today is Micheline Gallagher, Director of Education and Environmental Programs at the Annenberg Foundation Trust at Sunnylands, and Carter O'Brien, the Sustainability Officer with the Keller Science Action Center at the Field Museum in Chicago. I will be giving you a little bit of an overview of the work of CAM and the Green Museums Initiative in terms of this work that we'll be talking about. Carter will then be coming on and giving us a bit of the national perspective and also some examples from his specific geographic area. And then Micheline will come on and tell us a little bit more about We Are In. So just very briefly about the Green Museums Initiative. The Green Museums Initiative for the California Association of Museums has been doing this work since 2006. The committee is now part of the larger Strategic Action Committee for the association, and the mission is to inspire California museums to develop green business practices, eco-friendly facility management, and sustainable programming. Some of the work of the association you see here on the screen. So we are at the annual Green Museum Seminar, which this year, as you have noticed, is virtual. We look forward to coming back in person, as well as presenting the Secretary's Award for Excellence. So I am giving you advance notice now. Think about all of the wonderful projects, both programmatic and operational, that you've been working on in your institutions, particularly as it relates to the changing landscape of museums in dealing with COVID-19. To propose some wonderful projects for our award for next year. GMI has had a major impact on the work of CAM since it launched, both on the conference and on the various events. And we do postings. If you're not a part of the CAM social media, you should be, and you can read and add to all of the wonderful work that the committee is doing. The Green Museums Initiative spearheaded the California CAM's entry into We Are Still In. And I wanted to just share with you very briefly, you can see on your screen, you're not intended to read all of this, but these are some of the questions that we filled out as an association as part of We Are Still In. And our profile is public, so that if you are thinking about joining We Are Still In or are not sure about how to answer some of the questions or what you can do, you are welcome to check out CAM's official position on the link. The link is up on top. And read how CAM has answered the questions that are there. And so here are just sort of an expanded version of that. And I'm gonna not speak too much about We Are Still In, because Micheline will pick up on that a little bit later on in the presentation. And now I'm gonna actually turn it over to Carter to talk to us about some of the national networks.
Great, thank you, Mark, and thank you everybody for having me. I'm really delighted to be back collaborating with some of you lovely folks here from CAM and the Green Museums Initiative. What you're looking at on the screen is we just wanted to give you an example of some of the things that our Environment and Climate Network through the Alliance of American Museums has been tackling that is kind of relevant to the conversation. And that is a benchmarking and carbon project that Joyce Lee has been heading up for us. And the idea for this is that we've been working for a long time in our sector to try to get recognized by the EPA and to get a portfolio manager kind of Energy Star category that would be useful for the museum sector. And so what they told us was, if you can get 300 museums to voluntarily benchmark their carbon footprint, that they would be willing to consider it. And Joyce Lee ran with that, and we're now over 100. And this is just sort of a preliminary sort of look at what she's found so far. And what she's really found are that museums are really all very unique buildings, they're unique operations. And she was originally thinking that we would see some pretty clear patterns that, just depending on your geography, would become clear. Ostensibly cold weather cities, museums might spend more on, and use more energy for heat. We'd see a seasonal variation, with other museums that were in the Southwest. And what she really found is that we are really a collection of very eclectic and unique sort of operations. And it explains why it's been a little challenging to this date, but we're working on it in terms of trying to understand our sort of aggregate impact and what the best sort of impact we can make as a sector. So what she found in her initial tally is that 12 million metric tons of carbon emissions for our sector, and that this actually represents, this is the kind of shocking statistic, we represent 2% of the entire building sector's emissions. So even if we can improve ourselves, like incrementally and at least start moving in the right direction, we really can make a big impact just within our own buildings, in addition to kind of leading by example. And a further shocking number is what that works out to, which is the 2.6 million cars on the road. And that's not even including yet museum transportation and embodied carbon, much less like supply chains and some of these other more complicated things. So, the committee does do some pretty serious work, and we feel we are still in, and the partnership with CAM are just really, really important for us to be able to make some progress here. Also happy to announce that we've got some new events that are coming up. We have a Green Museums Knowledge Committee that's part of our group, and they've got a couple of these. There'll be more, I'm sure, but they're just going to sort of be like online social events. They're held from 1 to 2 o'clock Eastern Standard, which I think is 2 hours earlier than you folks. But one is going to be on programs, one will be on the planet, and you can, if you're a member of AAM, and I think CAM is an institutional member, you can register and find more information for this on our website, and you're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions as well. And then getting a little more into sort of, we are still in and really like the power of collaborating and networking, having some shared goals and best practices, is I'm kind of a liaison for AAM for the Chicago Museums in the Park. And this is a group of 11 of us that are on Chicago Park District property. We all have very different missions, very different collections. We've got, zoo, aquarium, natural history museums, but we're all in Chicago. We all deal with the same climate, and we're all dealing with the same sort of governmental systems and environmental sort of rules and regulations. So when COVID-19 hit, and I think my last day going into the building was about a week after the CAM conference that you had in March. I really enjoyed the conference much more than the COVID-19 sort of event. The very first thing that we found out was that there was a complete freeze put on many recycling programs. The haulers stopped picking up e-waste, and there was just like a whole lot of chaos and a lot of discord. And I think it speaks very well to the museum sector that actually we were some of the folks that they came to initially and said, help us understand what's happening and what should people be doing. So I had a call from a reporter with ABC News, and we talked about the challenges and the need to sort of focus on the safety first, but that we also wanted people to be as environmentally responsible as possible. And then that in turn also, that's something that allowed me to then share information and get more feedback from the other museums and the park institutions. And then we also work sort of with other larger Chicago networks that are environmental in focus, and also in the state. And this pertains specifically to the pledge of committing to reduce materials and waste. So there are 2 other pledges that I wanted to speak to, and I've selected those because I think they're really good examples of where Wassey can really kind of, we are still in, Wassey can kind of, help us all move the needle, so to speak. So that's climate policy and building resilience in your community. So, resiliency, this was a really great example of kind of some areas where Chicago was well poised to kind of do well, and some where we weren't, but it was really useful for all of us, I think, that the museums, many of us have actually been sort of proactively getting on top of this, because we've known for a while that many of these problems are much bigger than any of us individually, and that it's really important to work with everybody and to be also getting feedback and communicating with your communities. And that's what museums are very good at. So on the left, there was just a quick slide on, COVID-19. It froze all of our plastics legislation that was in place. We're very hopeful that, we're getting close to being able to sort of turn on some of the legislation that had been paused, and that we can push forward, starting with our sort of legislative session that starts in Illinois in the fall and in the city. But if you look on like all the many icons, and I don't expect you to recognize any of them, you'll just see that the shed and the Field Museum, the Shed Aquarium and the Field Museum are two institutions that really decided to jump up and try to educate and get people aware of the importance of plastic pollution and drinkable water. And then on the right, there's a sort of even more longer term challenge that we've had in Chicago, which is a very uneven enforcement of what is known as the Chicago Weed Ordinance. It's meant to stop, and deal with sort of abandoned properties and urban blight. But as more and more people have taken to planting prairie plants and other plants that are native to the region, what we've found is that sometimes people are very confused, and so they see sort of a 3-foot tall prairie plant and they just think it's like a yard that's been kind of let go. And since what we can absolutely expect to see with climate change are more intense rainstorms here in the Midwest, what this kind of effort is sort of all about is trying to understand how we can better align and harmonize with the natural world and use all of these plants that are native to the region, and to start encouraging them in parts of the city that kind of have turf grass or have been paved over. And again, this is something where the museums are out in front, because many of us have lawns, we have landscaping, and this is an example, this is a case where we can really truly lead by example. And we can say that, if these sort of native plants and this aesthetic are good enough for, sort of iconic buildings like the Field Museum and the Shed Aquarium, and they should be okay for your apartment complex or your home. Thank you, that's it for me.
Thank you, Carter. And now I'm going to turn it over to Micheline to talk to us a little bit more about We Are Still In.
Okay, let's see. Okay, we've got it. So what is the importance of cultural institutions in cooperative climate action? And the major thing is example and voice. So the ability of us to combine multiple institutions to have influence both at a governmental level in our community. That's really the goal of what really started the conversation of Wassey. So We Are Still In came on the withdrawal from the Paris Accord. And it's what's interesting about We Are Still In, and specifically from the cultural sector, the We Are Taking Action, is that these are the organizations that are from multiple sectors. They're city level, they're businesses, they're medical. And so you have this huge community, not just within cultural institutions, but opportunities to look at what industries are doing on one platform. And so on this platform, everybody on it is reporting what they're doing, what they would like to do, what their successes are and what their struggles are. So as a cultural institution, it gives us the opportunity to go on there and maybe see what the medical field is doing, what faith groups are doing, what universities are doing. This is particularly important if you are an institution that doesn't have a lot of internal experience on moving your institution towards sustainable decisions, because this is a huge platter of examples and areas to look. You can look at any of the ones that have gone public, and you can see what they're doing for energy, what they're doing if they are based on their size, how much property are they dealing with? So you can hone the organizations that best fit what you are trying to do. And it's a great opportunity to get examples through this. The other thing, the three major values, I think, for cultural institutions with being part of Wassey is A lot of us, when we're starting out this conversation in our institutions, are very uncomfortable about having a real public face on that. Especially if we haven't done a deep dive or we don't have that internal expertise. So what Wassey allows you to do is to start that process privately. So you can get on there and take your time at filling it out and determining what you want to do, where's areas you want to struggle, what do you want to be cheering about that you're doing, and you can do that. And you go public when you're ready. The other thing is it gives you a chance, those that have already gone public, to peek at what they're doing. So you may be trying to figure out, well, where do we start? Well, you start by looking at what someone else is doing and then start making that list. Oh, we can do that. We can do this. We can do that. And we'd like to do that, but we're not sure how. Now you have a list of organizations in different sectors that are doing that, and you can reach out to them, and you can even post in your entry that you are looking for somebody to have conversations with about this, to learn how to do this. So you have all of these ways of getting information. It's a significant tool for cultural institutions just to start this process and to then start getting recognition for what you are doing. Here's a lot of things that are going on out there that not everybody's aware of. So Carter introduced AAM. Also AASLH has a Sustainability and Climate Committee. So they're constantly doing webinars and programming and having those conversations for historic sites. The plus minus dilemma, which is starting conversations around exhibition and conservation. We just went through Climate Week. And so you can keep an eye on those types of events. And then the next really big thing that will be coming up is COP26. And Wassey has been very visible at COP. In fact, they've been so visible there that they get recognized now in the cities when they are participating in person. So 2021, it'll be in Scotland. And anybody who's looking for an individual way to participate, there's this opportunity as well. So the important thing is that what's coming up is a presidential election in November. And what we need to look at are patterns that we have seen occur in first-term president and a second-term president, because that's one way or the other, that's what we're going to be looking at. A second-term president, that's usually the time when the gloves are taken off. They're not looking forward to an election. And so you see behaviors in a second term that you might not have seen in the first term. So it's a little bit harder to predict what presidents are going to do in their second term. So this is something that we have seen historically. This is a pattern over and over again when we've seen two-term presidents. First-term presidents tend to be a little bit more careful. They know they're going to be coming up against a re-election. And so they're going to make decisions that make their constituents happy, but don't push anybody off too far in general. That has tended to be a pattern in the past. So this election, on both ends, we should not just assume that we're going to get the federal government leadership. There's a lot that will be on the table, a lot of things that will be fighting for attention. And so as the cultural sector and those of us that are in the non-governmental sector, we need to be aware that our voices are going to be super important no matter what happens, and that we have to stay in front of these issues and have a lot of conversation and a lot of engagement with both of our local and our federal representatives in order to make sure that this stays part of the focus. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time and for coming to this virtual online engagement.
Micheline, thank you. Carter, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We look forward to answering your questions. And this concludes the recorded portion of our program.